How long has she been coming here? Claire's voice was so quiet that, for one confused second, I thought I had misheard her. I stopped in the kitchen doorway with 2 mugs of coffee in my hands. What? She didn't answer. She didn't need to. Her eyes were fixed on the cream-colored sofa behind me. I followed her stare, and my stomach dropped. A pair of black lace women's panties lay across the center cushion. Not underneath it. Not caught between the cushions. Right in the middle. Perfectly visible. Claire slowly looked back at me. Whose are they, Daniel? I don't know. The answer came immediately because it was true. But judging by the change in her face, it sounded like exactly what a guilty man would say. She had arrived 10 minutes earlier carrying breakfast, using the spare key I had given her 2 weeks ago. That key was supposed to mean something. 7 months together. 7 months of late dinners, weekend drives, toothbrushes appearing beside each other, and conversations that had slowly changed from me and you to us. And now one piece of black lace was threatening all of it. Claire, I've never seen those before. Her eyes narrowed. So they just appeared on your sofa? I opened my mouth, then stopped. Because someone had been here yesterday. A woman. Sophie Reed. My photography assistant. She had stopped by to return a camera case before our upcoming hotel shoot. And while I searched for a missing memory card in my bedroom, Sophie had been alone in this room. For 5 minutes. Claire saw something change in my expression. Her face hardened. What? I looked from her to the black lace sitting perfectly in the center of my sofa. And suddenly, I had a much worse question. If Sophie had left them there, why had she made absolutely certain Claire would find them? Claire's eyes moved from me to the black lace panties and back again. Sophie was here? There was no good way to answer that question. Just yesterday afternoon. A small change came over her face. Not shock exactly. Something quieter. Confirmation. And you didn't think to mention that? She was here for work. That wasn't my question. I set both coffee mugs on the kitchen counter before my hands gave away how tense I was becoming. I was an architectural photographer. Most of my working life depended on noticing details other people overlooked. The reflection ruining a hotel window shot, a crooked lampshade, a shadow falling 3 inches too far across a marble floor. But standing there, I couldn't find the detail that would make any of this make sense. Sophie Reed had worked with me for almost a year. She assisted on commercial shoots, organized equipment, and occasionally dropped gear at my apartment when deadlines became ridiculous. Yesterday should have been no different. Claire folded her arms. How long was she here? Maybe 7 minutes. Alone with you? Claire. How long? I looked at her. 7 minutes. She nodded slowly. 7 months earlier, Claire Bennett and I had met while I was photographing a hotel she had helped redesign. She owned a small but successful interior design studio, and our first disagreement had been over whether my lighting made her carefully selected wallpaper look green. Our second conversation lasted 3 hours. Since then, things had become serious without either of us forcing them. She had clothes in my bedroom. I kept her favorite tea in my kitchen. 2 weeks ago, I gave her a spare key. What Claire didn't know was that I had already cleared half my wardrobe. I planned to ask her to move in after my upcoming hotel assignment. Now she reached into her handbag. The spare key landed softly on the coffee table. That sound hurt more than if she had shouted. Claire, don't do this. I'm not doing anything, Daniel. You've already decided. Her eyes finally met mine. I walked into my boyfriend's apartment and found another woman's underwear on his sofa. I understand what it looks like. Do you? Her voice cracked on the last word. That stopped my anger. For the first time, I saw what was underneath hers. I'm not asking you to ignore it, I said. I'm asking you to give me time to understand it. She picked up her handbag. I need to go. I didn't block the door. I wanted to. Instead, I watched the woman I had been preparing to build a home with walk out of mine. Only after the elevator doors closed did I return to the sofa. I photographed the panties exactly where they lay before placing them carefully inside a clean paper bag. That was when I noticed something. The lace was perfectly shaped. The fabric looked untouched. And inside the waistband, the store's hygiene strip was still attached. These panties hadn't simply been forgotten. They looked brand new, which meant someone might have brought them into my apartment for one reason only: to make Claire find them. I stared at the hygiene strip for several seconds. Then I took another photograph. If the panties were new, that changed the question. It no longer looked like something a woman had accidentally left behind. It looked placed. I set the paper bag on the dining table and reached for my phone. My first instinct was Claire. I typed, "They're new. The hygiene strip is still attached. I think someone planted them." I read the message twice, then deleted it. Claire had asked for space. Sending her theories without proof would sound exactly like what she had accused me of doing, building a story fast enough to protect myself. So I opened Sophie's number instead. "Were you alone in my living room yesterday?" The message showed delivered. A minute passed. Then two. The typing bubbles appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally, "Why are you asking me that?" I frowned. "Not yes. Not no." I called her. She answered on the fourth ring. "Daniel? Were you alone in my living room yesterday?" There was a pause. "I'm thinking for a minute, I guess. You told me you dropped the camera case and left." "I did." "Were you alone?" Another pause. "Yeah. While you went to find that memory card." I leaned against the kitchen counter. "Did you leave anything here?" "What would I leave?" "That's what I'm asking." Her tone changed. Softer. "Careful. Did Claire find something?" My fingers tightened around the phone. I had never mentioned Claire. Why would Claire have found anything? Sophie laughed lightly. "Daniel, she has a key, doesn't she?" I assumed she came over. It was reasonable. Reasonable enough. That bothered me more. "No," I said. "You didn't leave anything?" "No." "Okay. Daniel, what is going on?" "I'll talk to you later." I ended the call. For the next hour, I tried to work. I had 38 photographs from a hotel lobby shoot open across 2 monitors. Marble floors. Brass fixtures. Tall windows overlooking the river. Normally, editing settled me. Straighten the verticals. Correct the temperature. Remove the reflection in the glass. Small problems with visible solutions. That morning, I adjusted the same photograph 4 times and couldn't remember what I had changed. At 11, Marcus walked into the studio carrying 2 coffees. He looked at my screen. "You've made that chandelier blue." I looked again. He was right. I closed the image. Marcus Hale had been my business partner for 6 years and my friend longer than that. He knew the difference between me concentrating and me pretending to concentrate. What happened? Nothing. He placed 1 coffee beside me. "You just turned a 5-star hotel into an aquarium." I sat back. Then I told him. Not everything. Just enough. The sofa. The underwear. Sophie being there the day before. Marcus's expression changed when I said Sophie's name. "What?" He looked toward the studio door before answering. "Has Sophie ever said anything to you about Claire?" "No." "Nothing?" "Marcus." He exhaled slowly. "A few months ago, after that Brighton shoot, she asked me if you and Claire were actually serious." I stared at him. "What did you say?" "That you were." "And?" "She said relationships like yours usually don't last." A cold sensation moved through my chest. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because it sounded like gossip. And because I thought you'd already noticed she liked you." "I didn't." Marcus gave me a look. "You noticed. You just chose not to deal with it." That landed harder than I wanted it to. Sophie had made comments. Once she told me I looked better without my wedding shoot jacket, even though I wasn't married. Another time she asked whether Claire ever got tired of sharing me with work. I had laughed. Changed the subject. Moved on. It had been easier than making something awkward. But awkward was starting to look cheap compared with what silence could cost. That afternoon, I asked Sophie to come to the studio. She arrived carrying her laptop and the hotel shoot schedule. I thought we were reviewing Monday. "We are. After you answer something." She stopped. I kept my voice calm. "Walk me through yesterday again." Her eyes narrowed slightly. I came in. Put the camera case down. You went to the bedroom. I waited. Then I used the bathroom and left. I looked at her. You used the bathroom? Yes. Yesterday she had told me she had stayed in the living room. Anything else? No. She hugged the laptop closer to her chest. Daniel, this is getting ridiculous. Maybe. She moved toward the door. Then turned back. And said the one thing she should never have known. If Claire can throw away 7 months over one pair of black lace panties, maybe she never trusted you anyway. The room went silent. Sophie's face changed before I even spoke. I stood slowly. I never told you they were black. She said nothing. I never told you they were lace. Her fingers tightened around the laptop. Sophie. I took one step toward her. How did you know? Sophie stared at me. For 3 seconds, neither of us spoke. Then she gave a small laugh. It sounded forced. I guessed. You guessed the color? Black is common. And the lace. Her eyes moved toward Marcus's empty desk. I don't know, Daniel. You're acting like I committed a crime. I'm asking how you knew something I never told you. I probably saw them yesterday. That answer came too quickly. I held her gaze. You saw them? Maybe. When? When I dropped off the equipment. I shook my head. They weren't there before you arrived. You can't know that. Actually, I could. 20 minutes before Sophie came over, I had been looking for the television remote. I had pulled both cushions from the sofa, checked underneath them, and found the remote wedged against the armrest. There had been nothing else there. I hadn't thought about that detail until now. Sophie shifted her weight. You're seriously blaming me because Claire doesn't trust you? I haven't blamed you. You're interrogating me. No. I'm giving you a chance to explain. Her jaw tightened. I don't have to explain someone else's underwear. She walked toward the door. This time I let her go. Because arguing wouldn't give me proof. Details might. The moment the door closed, I sat at my desk and reconstructed Friday afternoon. Sophie arrived at 4:18. I knew because she had texted from downstairs. She left less than 10 minutes later. Then I remembered the security camera. I had installed it 6 months earlier after packages disappeared from our building. It faced the entryway, not the living room, so whatever happened near the sofa wouldn't be visible. But it would show Sophie arriving. I opened the app. 4:18. There she was. Sophie entered carrying my hard camera case in her right hand, her handbag over one shoulder, and a small white shopping bag in her left. I leaned closer. 7 minutes later, she left. Camera case gone. Handbag still there. No shopping bag. My pulse slowed rather than quickened. That was usually what happened when I became angry enough. Everything got quieter. I replayed the footage. Twice. Then Marcus returned. Daniel? I pointed at the screen. He watched without speaking. Recognize the bag? I asked. Marcus leaned closer. There was a small gold emblem printed near the handles. He frowned. Maybe. I enlarged the clearest frame. The image softened, but the logo remained visible. Marcus picked up his phone. There's a lingerie shop around the corner. 10 minutes later, we stood outside Bell and Rose, 3 streets from the studio. The logo in the window matched the one on Sophie's bag. I didn't ask the staff who had purchased anything. I didn't need someone's private transaction history. I already knew enough to ask Sophie one more question. Back at the studio, I called her. Come back. I'm busy. Then I'll ask you over the phone. What was in the Bell and Rose bag you carried into my apartment? Silence. A long one. What bag? I have security footage. Another silence. I bought something for myself. Where is it? Daniel, seriously? You entered my apartment with the bag. You left without it. That proves nothing. No. But knowing exactly what Claire found proves you saw it. And you just told me you might have seen it when you arrived. Her breathing changed. I lowered my voice. Tell me the truth. For several seconds, all I heard was traffic on her end of the call. Then Sophie said, I didn't sleep with you. I closed my eyes. That wasn't my question. Nothing happened between us. I know nothing happened. Then why does any of this matter? Because suddenly I understood. This wasn't about Sophie trying to make something happen between us. It was about making Claire believe something already had. Sophie. My voice came out quieter than before. Did you put those panties on my sofa? She didn't answer. Then she whispered, I didn't think she'd actually leave you. I looked at Marcus. His expression hardened. That wasn't a denial. It was almost a confession. Almost. What did you think would happen? I don't know. Yes, you do. Her voice broke. I thought she'd get angry. I thought you'd argue. Why? Because she acts like she knows exactly where she stands with you. I said nothing. Sophie continued before she could stop herself. I just wanted her to wonder for once. There was. Not everything. But enough. I ended the call and sat motionless. Marcus finally spoke. You have to report this. I knew he was right. Then my eyes landed on the production schedule beside my keyboard. Monday. The Ashford Grand Hotel campaign. 3 days. The largest contract our studio had ever been shortlisted to shoot. Sophie was the assigned production assistant because she had built the equipment schedule, location plan, and lighting inventory with me. Replacing her with less than 48 hours notice would almost certainly violate our staffing agreement. Marcus understood at the same moment I did. If you report her tonight, he said slowly, the agency may pull us from Ashford. For 2 years, I had been trying to win an account like that. One successful campaign could put our studio in front of hotel groups across the country. I looked at the security footage again. Then at Claire's spare keys still lying on my coffee table in my mind. The truth was finally close enough to touch. But proving it properly meant I could no longer pretend Sophie's behavior was merely personal. I would have to expose what she'd done. And if I did, I might lose the biggest job of my career. I sat with the phone still in my hand long after Sophie had gone quiet. I just wanted her to wonder for once. That sentence told me more than the panties did. More than the shopping bag. More than the security footage. Sophie had not been careless. She had planned it. She had walked into my apartment with something bought specifically to create a picture in Claire's mind. Another woman. Another secret. Another life happening behind her back. And she had counted on Claire doing the rest herself. Marcus stood across from me with both hands on his hips. You need her to say it clearly. I know. A partial confession would not be enough if this became a professional issue. So I called Sophie again. This time, Marcus stayed in the room. When she answered, her voice was flat. What? I need you to tell me exactly what you did. Daniel? Exactly. Silence. Then she exhaled. I bought them Friday. I looked at Marcus. From Belle and Rose? Yes. And you brought them to my apartment? Yes. Why? Her voice tightened. I already told you. No. You told me what you wanted Claire to feel. I'm asking why you wanted her to feel it. For a moment, Sophie said nothing. Then the resentment came out. Not loudly. That almost made it worse. Because everything changed when she came along. I leaned back. What changed? You did. I was in a relationship. You stopped calling after shoots. We discussed work. You stopped having coffee with me. Because I was spending time with Claire. Exactly. There was. Sophie had taken ordinary access and turned it into entitlement. She told me she had thought my jokes meant more. The late evenings. The conversations during long drives between locations. The way I listened when she complained about bad dates. She had decided those things meant there was something between us. I never said there was. But I also had never stopped her clearly enough when her comments crossed lines. That was my mistake. What she did with that was hers. I knew Claire had the key, Sophie said. You mentioned it at the studio. My stomach tightened. That explained the timing. She had not simply hoped Claire might visit. Knew Claire could enter on her own. And the panties? I put them on the sofa while you were looking for the memory card. Right in the center. Yes. So she would see them. Yes. Marcus, she looked away. Sophie began crying. I didn't think she'd actually leave. What did you think she'd do? I thought she'd get suspicious. Maybe fight with you. maybe you'd realize she didn't trust you as much as you thought. You wanted to damage my relationship. I wanted you to see her differently. I closed my eyes briefly. No, Sophie. You wanted her to see me differently. She had no answer to that. I ended the call. The room felt strangely calm afterward. The mystery was over. And somehow, that did not feel like relief. Because now I had something worse than suspicion. I had certainty. And certainty required a decision. Marcus broke the silence. If we report this tonight, Ashford is probably gone. I knew. Sophie had built half the production schedule for Monday's shoot. The hotel group had approved her as part of the crew. Replacing her 2 days before arrival would mean resubmitting access credentials, insurance documents, equipment clearance, and location timing. The agency had already warned us there would be no delays. If we wait until after the shoot? Marcus asked. I looked at him. He hated the question as soon as he said it. If we wait, I said, I spend 3 days working beside someone who deliberately interfered with my home. Marcus nodded once. And if Claire ever finds out I knew and kept Sophie on the job because the contract mattered more, then everything I've said means nothing. I opened my laptop. The incident report took 15 minutes. Sophie's confession. The security footage. The shopping bag. The inappropriate comments Marcus had heard. I attached everything. Then I pressed send. The agency called 40 minutes later. They removed Sophie immediately. And then came the consequence. Without an approved replacement, our company could not lead the Ashford campaign. The job was reassigned. Just like that. 2 years of pitches. Months of negotiations. 3 days that could have changed the direction of my business. Gone. Marcus leaned against the window. You sure? No. It was the truth. I wasn't sure. I was angry. I was disappointed. And part of me wanted to reverse time by an hour and make the easier decision. But easy was what had helped create this mess. Ignoring discomfort. Laughing off boundaries. Pretending clarity could wait. I picked up my phone. Claire's name was still near the top of my messages. I typed carefully. Sophie admitted she bought the panties and placed them on my sofa deliberately. Marcus heard the admission. I reported her tonight, and she has been removed from my work. We lost the Ashford job because of it. I stopped. Then added, you do not owe me a reply. I just wanted you to have the truth. I sent it. No response came. Not that night. Not the next morning. By Sunday afternoon, I had stopped checking every few minutes. The truth had cleared my name. It had cost me the biggest job of my career. But one question remained untouched. Claire now knew I had not betrayed her. What I did not know was whether knowing the truth could repair what happened before it arrived. Late that evening, my doorbell rang. I opened the door. Claire stood in the hallway. And in her hand was the spare key she had returned. Claire stood outside my apartment with the spare key resting in her open palm. For one awful second, I thought I understood why she'd come. She was going to make the separation permanent. Then she looked at me and said, I came to apologize. I stepped aside. Claire walked in slowly, almost cautiously. Her eyes went straight to the sofa. The cushion was empty now, but that didn't matter. We both looked at the exact spot where the panties had been, as though something of that morning was still sitting there between us. I spoke to Marcus, she said. I looked at her. He showed me the security footage. He told me about Sophie's confession. And about Ashford. I didn't lose that job for you. I know. Something in me eased at that. Claire placed the key on the coffee table, but she didn't slide it toward me. I spent 2 days thinking that if I could just get proof you were innocent, everything would make sense again, she said. Then I got the proof, Daniel. And I realized that wasn't the only thing I owed you. I waited. Her eyes met mine. I'm sorry. Her voice trembled slightly. Not because Sophie fooled me. What I saw would have frightened anyone. I'm sorry because I decided what kind of man you were before I let you finish telling me what happened. There was no but after it. No excuse. No attempt to make her apology easier on herself. And before coming to see me, Claire had already done something that mattered. She'd called her sister, the only person she'd told about the panties, and explained what had really happened. Not simply that Sophie had confessed. Claire had told her plainly that she had been wrong about me. I appreciated that. But it didn't magically put us back where we'd been. Can I ask you something? Claire nodded. If Sophie hadn't confessed, would you eventually have believed me? Her lips parted. For several seconds, she couldn't answer. Then her eyes dropped. I don't know. That hurt. But I preferred an uncomfortable truth to another comfortable lie. Claire sat on the edge of the armchair. My last relationship ended because I ignored things I should have questioned. Every strange thing had an explanation. And every explanation had another explanation behind it. When it ended, I promised myself I'd never be that woman again. I understand why you were afraid. She studied my face. But I'm not him. Her eyes filled immediately. No, she whispered. You're not. And I can't spend our relationship proving that every time something frightening happens. I know. I sat opposite her. I wasn't angry because you questioned the panties. Claire, if I'd walked into your place and found something like that, I'd have questions too. Then what hurt? I knew the answer immediately. I'd known it since the moment she put that key down and walked away. I needed you to hear me. Claire went completely still. I didn't need you to blindly believe me. I didn't need you to ignore what was sitting on the sofa. I just needed you to stay long enough to hear my answer before deciding who I was. A tear slipped down her cheek. You deserve that. The apartment became quiet. Then it was my turn to admit something uncomfortable. Sophie had crossed smaller boundaries before Friday. Personal compliments. Questions about Claire. Messages that didn't need to arrive late at night. I had noticed some of them. And instead of confronting Sophie directly, I'd laugh them away because making a joke was easier than making the situation uncomfortable. What Sophie did is her responsibility, I said. But I should have made my boundaries clear long before Friday. Claire shook her head. You didn't make her do this. No, I didn't. I paused. But I still get to decide what behavior I allow around me. Something softened in Claire's face. She looked toward the key lying between us. So where does that leave us? Part of me wanted the easy answer. Come home. Take the key. Let's forget this happened. Instead, I reached for it. Then I placed it back into her palm. Claire's expression fell. Not yet, I said gently. She looked at me. I still love you, Claire. Her fingers slowly closed around the key. But if we put everything back exactly the way it was, then we've learned nothing. She nodded. I still love you too. The words landed quietly. And somehow that made them heavier. 7 months of ordinary mornings. Late dinners. Arguments over wallpaper. Toothbrushes beside each other. A spare key that had once felt like such a simple promise. All of it was still there. Damaged. But not gone. What do we do now? She asked. We start smaller. How? If something looks wrong, ask. Claire nodded. And stay long enough to hear the answer. Yes. She took a breath. No disappearing because I'm afraid. No laughing past boundaries because I'm uncomfortable. A faint smile appeared. That one's yours. I know. Claire looked at the key again. Then she held it toward me. Not asking me to take it. Not asking me to give it back. Just letting me see it. When you're ready, she said. Such a small gesture. But it meant more than simply putting that key back on her ring. I reached across the space between us. Claire turned her hand over. Our fingers touched. Neither of us pretended the last few days had disappeared. I want to try again, she said. So do I. Her fingers tightened around mine. And for the first time since she'd stood beside that sofa and asked how long another woman had been coming into my home, I understood what trying again actually meant. We weren't choosing the relationship we'd had before. We were choosing a harder version. A better one, if we could live up to it. One where fear was allowed to ask questions without becoming a verdict. One where uncomfortable boundaries were spoken instead of laughed away. One where love didn't demand blind trust. It demanded something more difficult. Answer. Listen. Then choose. And that night, with the spare key still resting in Claire's hand, we chose each other again. 8 months later, Claire had the key again. I hadn't given it back after 1 week. Or even 1 month. 2 months after that night, she stood in my kitchen and asked quietly, "Are we ready?" This time, we both knew exactly what the key meant. We weren't perfect after that. We were simply better at being honest. When Claire saw a late-night message from a woman named Amelia on my phone, she didn't go silent. "Who's Amelia?" "New hotel coordinator." That was it. When Claire canceled dinner after a difficult client meeting, I didn't decide she was pulling away. "Space or company?" I asked. "Company." I brought dinner to her studio. And when a new assistant started making personal comments during shoots, I didn't laugh them away. "I'm in a relationship," I told her. "Let's keep this professional." The conversation became awkward for approximately 10 seconds. Then life continued. That might have been the biggest lesson Sophie accidentally taught me. Clear boundaries were far less expensive than comfortable silence. My career recovered too. Marcus and I didn't magically receive Ashford back. We kept working. 6 months later, another hotel group hired us for a campaign even larger than the one we'd lost. Life didn't reward me for being right. It simply kept moving. Then, one Saturday morning, Claire let herself into my apartment carrying 2 coffees. Almost exactly like she had 8 months earlier. I was waiting in the living room. She took 3 steps. Stopped. Her eyes went to the center cushion of the same cream sofa. A small velvet box sat there. For 1 second, neither of us spoke. Then Claire looked at me. I smiled. "Before you ask, I put that there." Her hand flew to her mouth. "I know exactly where it came from," I continued. "I picked up the box. And this time, I know exactly who it's for." Her eyes filled before I even reached one knee. "Claire Bennett, will you marry me?" She laughed through her tears. "Yes." I opened the box. "Are you sure? You didn't ask any questions." She laughed harder. Then she knelt in front of me. "Yes, Daniel. I'm sure." 8 months earlier, someone had placed something on that sofa hoping fear would decide our future. This time, I had placed something there because Claire and I had learned to decide it ourselves. Maybe trust isn't never seeing something that frightens you. Maybe it's knowing that when you do, you'll ask the person you love for the truth. And stay long enough to hear the answer.